Let's begin with a destabilizing idea. What if time is not something that passes? What if the feeling that the future is coming toward you, the present is happening to you, and the past is disappearing behind you, is not the structure of reality itself, but the structure of human experience inside reality? In philosophy and physics, the closest serious frameworks for this idea are eternalism, the block universe, and the B-theory of time. These views hold that past, present, and future are all equally real, even if they are not equally present to us. They are usually contrasted with presentism, where only the present exists, and the growing block view, where the past and present exist but the future does not yet. That distinction matters because most people casually say all time exists at once, without realizing that this is not just mystical language. It is tied to a rigorous philosophical question. Is the present objectively special, or is it merely indexical, like here? In other words, when I say now, am I naming a metaphysical spotlight in the universe, or am I simply locating myself inside a larger temporal structure the way I say here to locate myself in space? Eternalist views treat now much more like here than common sense does. Now here is where the conversation becomes truly profound. Before relativity, it was easier to imagine that the universe shared one giant cosmic present, one universal, now stretched across all of existence. But special relativity undermines that intuition. Einstein's framework shows that simultaneity is not absolute. Two observers moving relative to one another can disagree about which distant events are happening at the same time, and both can be correct within their frame of reference. That means physics gives us no obvious, observer-independent slice of the universe that deserves to be called the present. And once that universal present begins to dissolve, a new picture becomes available. The universe can be understood not as a three-dimensional world being constantly updated by a moving present, but as a four-dimensional space-time structure. In that picture, your birth, this conversation, and your death are not being created one after another, like frames being printed out in real time. They are different regions of one larger reality. That is the essence of the block universe. Not that everything is happening in one chaotic blur, but that every event has its location in space-time, and the whole structure exists tenselessly rather than being continually manufactured by a cosmic clock. This is where many people misunderstand the idea. To say that all time exists does not mean that Caesar is crossing the Rubicon, you are watching this video, and humanity's far future are all unfolding in one literal shared present. That is sloppy language. The stronger claim is subtler. Each event exists at its own coordinate in space-time, and what we call past, present, and future may reflect our position inside that structure rather than separate modes of existence. The difference is enormous. One is mystical compression, the other is ontological redescription. So then we reach the deepest question. If all times exist, do they affect one another? At the ordinary level of physics, events are structured by causal relations, not magical cross-temporal interference. The conservative block universe reading does not say the future is constantly reaching backward and rewriting the past. It says the total history of the universe may be one fixed relational whole. But there are more speculative interpretations of quantum theory that reopen the door to something more radical. Retrocausality, the idea that future boundary conditions may help constrain present events. This is where the conversation moves from metaphysics into the foundations of quantum mechanics. The Stanford Encyclopedia's review of retrocausality lays out several approaches that explore backward-in-time influence or two-way temporal constraint, including the transactional interpretation, the two-state vector formalism, two-time boundary value models, and explicitly named all-at-once Lagrangian models. These approaches do not all say the same thing, but they share a common intuition. Maybe the world is not fully generated by pushing initial conditions forward. Maybe in some descriptions reality is constrained from both ends. But this is where intellectual discipline matters. Retrocausality is not established fact, it is an interpretive research program inside quantum foundations. Even the two-state vector formalism, one of the best-known examples, is described as empirically equivalent to standard quantum mechanics. That means it does not straightforwardly prove that the future literally sends causal signals backward in the everyday sense. It means there are coherent ways of mathematically and conceptually organizing quantum phenomena that are more time-symmetric than ordinary intuition allows. Now step back and feel the magnitude of this. At the philosophical level, eternalism says the future may already be real. At the relativistic level, physics gives us no single universal now. At the quantum foundational level, some interpretations even experiment with models in which later conditions help constrain earlier states. Taken together, these ideas do not prove that time is an illusion, but they do put severe pressure on the naive story that reality is built only one moment at a time, with the present as the sole ontological frontier. And yet, your experience still screams that time flows.
Why?
Because the human organism does not merely occupy space-time, it processes information asymmetrically. We remember the past, not the future. We see eggs break, not spontaneously reassemble. Heat flows from hot to cold. Coffee diffuses through the room, not back into the cup. This is the thermodynamic arrow of time, the macroscopic asymmetry that gives lived time its directionality, even if the deep structure of reality is more block-like than flowing. That point is crucial for a master's-level understanding of the issue. The experience of passage and the ontology of time are not obviously the same question. A universe may contain beings who experience sequence, anticipation, regret, memory, aging, and irreversible change, while the total space-time description of that same universe does not contain an objectively moving now. In other words, the flow of time may be phenomenologically undeniable, yet metaphysically non-fundamental. That tension is one of the central achievements of modern philosophy of time. Now let's go one level deeper. If all time exists, what happens to freedom? That is where the conversation becomes existential. Many people hear block universe and immediately think, then everything is fixed, agency is fake, choice is theater. But that conclusion comes too fast. The block view concerns the ontology of temporal existence. It does not, by itself, settle every debate about determinism, indeterminism, or free will. Those are related issues, but not identical ones. The fact that all events are equally real does not automatically tell you whether those events are deterministic, probabilistic, or how agency should be analyzed within them. So here is the mature conclusion. There is no single accepted theory of all time existing at the same time and impacting each other. But there is a serious intellectual landscape around that intuition.
Eternalism says all times are equally real.
Relativity weakens the idea of one universal present. The block universe pictures reality as a four-dimensional whole. Retrocausal quantum interpretations explore whether later conditions can help constrain earlier ones. And thermodynamics explains why, whatever time is in itself, it feels directional to us. So the real intellectual challenge is not merely asking whether time is real. It is asking whether passage is fundamental, or whether passage is what reality feels like from the inside. When consciousness encounters a larger temporal order, it cannot see all at once. Maybe we are not beings riding on time. Maybe we are local awarenesses inside a total space-time structure, interpreting limitation as flow. And maybe the deepest shock is this. The future may not be unreal. It may simply be unseen. Time may not be a river carrying us forward. It may be an ocean already whole, and consciousness is what it feels like to move through one current of it.